Since 2021, I've been using passion planners to plan out my entire year, as well as keep track of running two businesses, being a mom, running a household, and all the things in between. And in this video today, I'm going to show you how I plan for the new year with my passion planner. Now, I didn't always use a passion planner to plan everything out. I actually started out with a bullet journal. So this is the one that I used. I think this was 2017. Let's see if I happen to put the year on it. Yes, 2017, where I created my first bullet journal. And this one is really like a keepsake for me because I tracked my pregnancy, I tracked some first words with my toddler at the time, and all sorts of things like that. I tracked the books I was reading, the hikes that we took, milestones from the babies, and this one is definitely near and dear to me. There's also a lot of really ugly stuff in here, like tracking my habits with scribbles all over it from the kids, tracking my meal planning, my weekly everything, symptoms, more milestones from the kids, things like that. And I eventually fizzled out on keeping a bullet journal. And one of the most difficult parts for me was actually creating the weekly spreads. And so that's when I found the Passion Planner, because it puts all of that into a planner for me where I didn't have to create the week every week. I could just sit down and plan my week. So as you can see, I have years worth of passion planners. I'm very passionate about these. This first year that I did was 2021. This was before they put the years on the spine. This was like my first year using it for business, personal, all the things in between. I run two businesses, and so I'm able to track all of that within here, as well as personal things. And that's one of the things I love about the Passion Planner. So in today's video, I'm going to go through setting up your passion planner for the year. And yes, I know about when this video goes live, we will be in February. I have been really slow to sit down and, first of all, even open up my passion planner, and second of all, plan for the year in it. And that is just the season of life I'm in. And I wanted to give it enough focus and energy. And I just wasn't able to carve out time until the end of January to do so. So if you are also feeling a little bit behind because you haven't either picked a planner or you haven't started your planner, that's okay. I'm going to have pretty much an entire month that's blank in my planner, other than a few things I'm going back and filling in, because there's some really cool features inside of the Passion Planner that we'll get into in a moment that make it such a beautiful, not only a planner, but a keepsake. At the back of each passion planner, there's an envelope that you can store things from the year inside of there. And I always like to go through my old passion planners envelopes, like this one, for example. This was the year that I was very active in a group called Hike It Baby, and we used to get stickers. This was 2017 that I stuck this in this folder. Technically, it belongs in that bullet journal, but on the back of it, I wrote down and logged the number of miles that I hiked with my kids and alone, and the number of minutes. And I actually hiked 42 miles in January of 2017 in just 1 month. So some really cool keepsakes. I have a preschool graduation announcement, things like that. And then throughout the Passion Planner, there's an area to record good things that happened that week. And so that's kind of the stuff that I'm going back in and filling in for this January, since I wasn't using my planner for all of January. And then these days I try to put things that happen, not only write them in, but if there's a memento from that event, like a movie ticket or a theme park ticket or something like that, I will either glue or tape it into the Passion Planner for that week or stick it in that back envelope. Pretty inconsistent with how I handle them, but when I think of it, I like to stick them in the Passion Planner. So they act more as just a documentation of the year, and it's kind of fun to flip back through them and remember the years. So without further ado, let's dive into actually setting up your Passion Planner for the year. And in a future video, if it's available, it'll be linked at the end of this video or right here. I'm going to sit down and show you my weekly planning ritual process that helps me stay grounded and focused and not too overwhelmed, even with a digital planning system as well as like a project management system, digital calendars. I always still sit down and use my passion planner because it helps me quiet all the overwhelm and the noise that tends to exist when you also track things in a digital environment. Welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. And here we are in the middle of January, and I've finally gotten to the point where I have opened my planner, put all the tabs on, and I'm ready to sit down and do my planning for the year. In years past, I haven't used these pages. This one's newer, about the core values, which I'm probably going to sit down and take some time to look at this. I've definitely been reflecting on that a lot lately. My passion roadmap, I always sit down and map this out, and it's really fun to actually look back at it throughout the year and then look back at previous years' passion roadmaps. So I'll probably be going through those and studying those before I sit down to do this exercise this time to see if there's any goals that I want to carry forward or scratch off the list. The vision board, these are new pages. I haven't used these in the past, but I think I might create a little bit of a vision board with this year, and it might be something that is evolving. And as I see things like in magazines and stickers and stuff like that, I'll probably add it here. But I don't think this is going to be an exercise that I do right now. Habit practice. This is one of those things that I always start off with really good intentions and almost never follow through. For example, I'm going to grab my planner from 2025, and this was a newer feature in the 2025 planners, and so I did start using it. And as you can see, I have my passion roadmap is filled out. Things that are highlighted are things that I accomplished or completed. So speaking of monthly habit practice, as you can see, I was very inconsistent with it. January started off okay. I don't aim to do everything every day. And so mine is always going to look a little bit sporadic anyways. But some of the things that I like to track are movement, taking my vitamins, practicing or listening to some sort of music. That's a really important piece to my self-care and my creativity. I like to track my mood. I started off tracking liquids last January and very quickly stopped tracking that. I just make sure that I drink 2 of my hydro flasks or Yetis every single day, and I'm pretty consistent with that. So I didn't really feel like I needed to track that or wanted to. I added going to the sauna. That was a new thing for 2025. So I was doing that at least once a week. And then I got back on the bandwagon of sort of tracking, and I started tracking it a little bit differently, where I was highlighting things instead of doing check marks. This is a little more visually appealing. My big takeaways: movement keeps the mood up. Lots of happy faces on all the days that I tracked movement. And for me, if I move my body in any sort of way during that day that either gets my heart rate up or gets me outside or just activity for 15 plus minutes, I count that as movement. So a walk around the block counts, visit to the gym, a workout at the gym, a bike ride, all of that counts, paddle boarding. So that's why I have movement instead of gym on there. And then I started tracking reading or music because I found that I really wanted to dive in more to reading in the second half of the year of 2025. And it's a little hard to carve out time to do both, honestly. So whether I read or play music or listen to music, those are all really important to me. And I do try to read daily, even if it's just for 10 to 15 minutes. Still suck at tracking. Maybe next year. So here we are in next year. Okay, so The next thing that I like to map out after I go through my monthly habits is the whole year and quarterly goals. I love planning by quarter, and so I absolutely love this spread, and I love that it shows you the following year as well, so that you can kind of look further ahead at a snapshot. So if we look at 2025, my word of the year was love, apparently. I definitely felt loved and worked on showing my love to people in my life in 2025. So I had some quarter one goals, some Q2 goals, Q3 and Q4. I also like to put in here the month of, like, if I'm going to be traveling or something, that's a really big, important piece when I'm mapping out launches or promotions or any sort of like thinking about marketing promotions, basically. So if I'm going to go hard at doing a bunch of podcast interviews, that's not really going to work out if I have a trip planned, whether it's personal or for business. So I always map out the trips that are definitely planned, set in stone. I will usually write out events that I want to go to, whether or not I end up going is one thing. In 2025, I ended up going to pretty much all of the events that I had mapped out, except BBD Live. I skipped that one this year. And then I did map out some things for 2026. I have a BBA launch, which will be coming. My DIY books launch I had mapped out. That's probably not happening, and that'll be a totally different episode because I'm focused on actually just getting one-on-one clients for the firm, and the juice has not been worth the squeeze for me on this one right now anyway. My marketing efforts and relationship building has been a lot more lucrative by just bringing people on as one-on-one clients, because that's what people have been needing. All right, and then Q2. So I will be sitting down and looking at my goals and figuring out what lines up. And honestly, my main focus when I sit down to plan all of this is going to be just to map out the first quarter and see how things go with that, and then come back to Q2 and map that out probably in March sometime. And then we get to the monthly spread of the current month that we're on. I love so many things about this planner. So there's a spot for this month's focus, personal and work. So I always try to have some sort of personal focus and a work focus. My personal focus, we're already halfway through January, but I would say my personal focus this January has been my devotions and my relationships. I've been spending a lot of time with people in my life, visiting from out of town. I got to see my dad and my sister for Christmas, all that good stuff. So that's been a big one for January. It's really fun to list out the people that you plan to see or that you hope to see and make it a priority. And then to be able to flip back through old planners, these become keepsakes because like I can I'll probably flip through this before I really sit down and do my planning. But I did flip through this a little bit a couple weeks ago, honestly, just to see like some of the things that I wrote down. I'll save mementos from throughout the year. So this is from the Space Needle from the Wave Seattle trip that I went to. Shout out to Erin and her Wave Seattle conference. I'm gonna flip back to a month where on the monthly spread, I put something down and they're all blank. That's crazy. Well, there's also a spot to do something similar on the weekly spreads. So that's usually where I end up documenting things. Oftentimes I end up forgetting about this monthly spread after I sit down and kind of map things out. It's more of an exercise for me to look at the month ahead. Rarely do I ever come back and refer to it. It's kind of just like, okay, I'm going to look at the month ahead and then I'll start planning out the weeks, and I'll do a different video on planning out my weeks because that's like a whole process. So people to see, places to go. Usually for me, it's they're one and the same. Like I usually go places to see people because I don't have family here in Northern Arizona where I'm living. So pretty much anytime I go somewhere, it's in order to see someone. So they're usually one and the same. Things to learn, I don't often fill that out, but occasionally I will. Like right now I'm working on learning a specific song on my guitar because it's really challenging and part of me feels like I'm not capable of it. It involves a variation of something called Travis picking, which is it's a finger picking technique that I have not even begun to master. And so I decided, well, if I try really hard to learn this song that has a variation of it in there, then throughout the process of learning that song and going through that challenge, everything else I learn will hopefully seem a lot easier. So that's probably what I'm going to put here on things to learn for January. Places to go, I do have a trip or two planned for later in the month. And then down here we have personal projects and work projects. And I don't necessarily like list them out in priority. I will usually star or number things by priority. And then we have just blank space for creating a mind map of this month's game changer. I don't really use it that way. I usually just use it to keep notes around certain projects or things that come to mind that I might want to refer back to. Like this one, for example, it's just kind of like really hard to understand. I was just doing some math basically on Facebook ads, running Facebook ads to my free training, what the cost per acquisition is and what my goal is revenue wise, and then backing into how much I need to spend in ads. So things like that I will jot down there. But like I said, I don't really often come back and look at these. Maybe at the very end of the month when I'm looking at doing the next following month, because one of the practices I have is to, I do this on a weekly basis too. I will look at all of the projects or task lists that I have below on the weekly spread, like the to-do lists. And whatever doesn't get done, I put an arrow next to it and then I carry it over to the following week, or I scratch it out if it's no longer relevant. So I'll do that at the end of January. I'll come back and look at this, or, we're pretty much at the end of January by the time this goes out. So sometime in February or at the end of February, I'll look at it for February. So that's pretty much my annual planning methodology on paper. There are other aspects that I do digitally, and one of the biggest ones is to create a forecast or a budget. And so if you're watching this and you are a business owner and you have goals to grow your revenue and you want support in that, that is something that I offer. I will do a CFO day with you as a one-time thing. Even if you're not a client, there's some requirements and some caveats, but reach out. Head over to my website, ofcoursefinancial.com, and reach out to us to get more information on that. If you are a bookkeeper or an accountant and you are interested in learning the skills to create budgets for clients, the best way to do that is to do it for yourself. And so whatever bookkeeping software you're using, there's generally a budgeting module or feature within it. And I would start there and see what you have access to, especially if you're a QuickBooks Pro Advisor. You should have the top subscription of QuickBooks, which gives you the budgeting feature, and start playing around with that. I always export everything to Excel and do my thing in there and then import it later on. And so I have actually already created my budget for my firm. That is something that I did put the time into planning it was probably more like the beginning of the year. I think it was technically after New Year's. And I did sit down and create a plan financially for the firm based on revenue growth goals and hiring goals and all of that. And it did take a few hours because I wanted to model things out accurately. So that's kind of a little side tangent there, but this is my annual planning ritual that I do, and I'm going to go do that now, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shu. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout, and you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.